Hello, I'm Ryan Lester, and this is episode 30 of the Wolves Report, where tonight we'll be talking about the Chelsea game, talking about Chiquinho, talking about the rewards of positive football, answering your questions, and looking ahead to the game v Manchester City, and maybe a little bit about Norwich as well. No podcast will be complete without his guests, and I'm delighted to welcome a man that's had more chances than I'm afraid to say, but he's had less appearances than Neil Masters. Welcome back, Nocky. He's got his new Wi-Fi in place. Tyler, Mr. Consistent recently, and we're delighted to welcome on again Ben Husband from Mirror Football. Welcome, gentlemen. Let's get straight into things. Avoid the pleasantries. After 70 minutes on Saturday, I was quite an angry man. I was still quite an angry man after the game, to be honest, because I felt like it was a missed opportunity. However, if you are 2-0 down away at the European and World Champions and you come back and have a draw, that's a great turnaround, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I was like ready to sack the manager after. It was just the turnaround was just remarkable. I just really didn't see it coming at all. We were much better than we've been in recent weeks anyway, even when we were losing the game. So there was a little bit more comfort, but again, it was just stupid errors that put us in a position. Because I'm at the stage of the season now where if Wolves concede a goal, I automatically think, well, they're not winning today. So
yeah,
the best you can hope for is a point. And then when Lukaku scores again, then automatically you just think, right, that's it, game over. Let's just not get absolutely shelled now. And we'll come on to it, but just the change in mindset, the switch in mindset was just remarkable, and it shows that this group of players maybe have still got something about them, because we've seen in the last couple of weeks a lot of them look like they're checked out, but that performance, sort of points to the contrary, really. So it was just a real surprise, a real surprise.
I mean, people have definitely been split on social media, but I mean, some of it come from my way as well. But Wolves got a lot of stick last weekend, but I've got to say that stick was justified and warranted, because Wolves were terrible. And I know Cody's come out in the week and said, it hurts about people saying on the beach, but pretty much the whole team played like they're on the beach last week. So as someone else mentioned on Twitter, if some negativity and saying you haven't done your best filters through and you get a response like that at the end of the Chelsea game, then you know what? Sometimes the truth hurts, but it's the best thing, because for me, there was no papering over the cracks of last weekend. It was pathetic. Yes, Brighton were very good, but Wolves were rubbish last weekend. But Nocky, you've got to be delighted to peg back the European champions from 2 down.
Yeah, I wasn't too disheartened, to be honest with you, because I thought the first half, the only real disappointment for me is that we weren't leading the game. So I don't think Chelsea had created a great deal. We had a couple of real good chances. Then Donker puts one over that he's absolutely got to finish. I was frustrated because it was the same problems, really, that we just couldn't take our chances. But, second half, I thought 2 hideous goals to give away. Really disappointing. I don't know what Romain Saïss is doing for the first goal. And for the second goal, Cody's blasting one at Coutinho, hasn't he? The ball's not for him, we know that, but he's still put Coutinho in a difficult position. So we put ourselves in a daft position, but we managed to get ourselves back in the game. And Trincao, for me, we've questioned whether or not he's good enough to be at Wolves or whether he adds anything to the team. But we can see now that in that number 10 position, if we play him there, he's going to be efficient. He's going to be dangerous for us. So fingers crossed we can take that forward. But all in all, I was really pleased to get the last minute goal as well. Was excellent. And yet Cody I think he got a bit precious that people were having a little bit of a dig at him. But it was true. We were on the beach. There's no two ways about it. You don't lose the sort of games we lost. I mean, we lost to Leeds, who are now in the bottom 3. We lost to Burnley, who got slapped by Villa. So you can't look at it any other way than think that they were underperforming, because they clearly were. But they come back, they reacted well, and it's a good point for us.
Yeah, Tyler, I'm sure you're pretty much the same sort of mindset as Ben and Nocky. It's a point that some people thought was possible, because Chelsea themselves have looked a little bit on the beach, whether they're just aiming everything for the FA Cup final. But it's certainly, Chelsea certainly look like a side that have been indifferent since Abramovich has gone. Now, you wouldn't think the ownership would change the mentality of the players so much, but they do look vulnerable. So as much as I'm delighted to come back from 2-2, I really feel if Wolves were more positive and brave earlier on, there might have been a little bit more for Wolves.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I slightly disagree with the boys. I didn't think the first half was very good, to be honest, or that easy on the eye. And Nocky says we could have been 1-up. Chelsea could have easily had 2 or 3 minimum first half, not including the one that was, rightly disallowed. And I just love watching Wolves that we saw in the last 20 minutes. Just shackles off play. Chelsea could not live with us for 20, 25 minutes. And
That's not something I thought. No lie, I didn't think you'd be saying that this week. That's something I didn't think would be coming out of your mouth.
They couldn't deal. But when we play with that sort of pace and that intensity and that 1-2 touch football compared to, the sideways, backwards football that we're so used to seeing, and it serves a purpose. It makes us compact. It should make us difficult to break down and hard to beat. But when we do let the shackles off, we're a totally different side. And, players dropping in positions. I thought pretty much everyone, even Hwang, sort of got us on the front foot. Trincao was brilliant. Chiquinho. How nice to see someone just whip a ball in. Not have to do 7 or 8 step overs, turning side. First time, whipped it in. It was Beckham-esque, wasn't it? He got the ball, he whipped it in, a goal, 2-2. So I was slightly disappointed first. I know you can't play with that intensity and pace for the whole game, especially away from home at Chelsea. But we're a different side when we play like that. And that's probably similar to you, why I'm probably still a little bit, if I'm being picky, a little bit frustrated that it was only 1 point.
Well, just going on, we'll start with the negatives first. And I know this has sort of touched on a few people's nerves, was particularly what I said about Cody's error, but the mistakes were so avoidable that I know Saïss for me hasn't come back great since the AFCON, but that for me, Ben, that mistake is just ridiculous. If number one, you don't try and outmuscle Lukaku, all right? Get yourself in a position when you don't get into a wrestling match because you're going to lose. And secondly, then, when you've messed it up, don't kick out because you are not going to get away with that. Pre-VAR, you know what? He's probably not giving that. Or maybe he lent on VAR a bit, but it's a blatant penalty. It's stupidity of the highest order. But we'll talk about that mistake first. I mean, Ben, he's got to do better than that, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably quite unpopular because I know he is, fans quite like him, but I'd be quite happy for him not to play again this season. I'd rather see Gomez now for the remainder of the season, especially the fact he's out of contract at the end of the season. And look, I probably went into this season thinking he wasn't good enough and needed to be upgraded. And for 70% of the season, maybe 60% of the season, he proved me wrong because he did play really well. I think he's now back at his level where if Wolves want to progress further, he isn't good enough for what Wolves want to do, in my opinion. And, maybe Gomez won't be either, but let's see what we have got. I think there's more value to playing him now and seeing how good he is and what we've got with him. It was just, we see it too often with Saïss, in my opinion. It was just, that is not good enough for a Premier League central defender to do that.
He's done a lot, Ryan, hasn't he? The penalty Saturday, he gave a penalty away against Brighton. He had a mare against Leeds for the goal. The Burnley goal at Turf Moor was down his side. I mean, how many chances does he need before he's taken outside? I think it's staggering, really, that he's still playing.
Well, this is it. I mean, we'll talk about Saïss for a little bit, and this isn't a slagging match, but poor form must be identified because if we're going to give praise on this show, we have to give criticism as well. So I don't understand, and I think he's very, very fortunate to have played as many games on the bounce as he has. Now, does the manager still believe that there's a European chance and he thinks Saïss is better than him, or I don't know.
You wouldn't be able to justify him playing if Kilman was fit, in my opinion. There'd be absolutely no justification at all. You can probably get away with it by saying that Gomez is still really inexperienced and we don't know what we have actually got. But for me, I've seen enough now with Saïss to know that he isn't the answer anyway. So
what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's incredible, really, that's the championship winning defence. And still on, we haven't been out and managed to purchase a centre-back that improves that back line, which I find incredible. Whether it's credit to the players for holding it down, a couple of sevenths, FA Cup, semi-European quarter. So you have to give credit where it's due. But the fact that area of the team hasn't been improved, I mean, you could say Kilman, but Kilman's already there. He's improved. The signings haven't been bolstered, but it's crazy now. Well, I'm like you, Ben. I mean, by the looks of it, didn't Saïss come off injured anyway? So I'll be surprised Is he going to want to push himself to another game? I don't know. But Man City's coming ahead. Just one thing, Nocky, if you could just speak a little bit louder. We've had a few mentioning. Now, not many people ask you to shout a bit louder, Nocky, but we're going to ask you to go tonight. I think this is the politest one I've had. Turn up the sound, Knock. And here's some more love from Hungry Like the Wolf. Well, hey, Nocky paid for his internet. So...
Just not a speaker by the sound of it.
Yeah, so I mean, pick and choose, lads. We've had a few comments here. Can't hear Nocky very well. Yeah, sorry guys. We've had a few comms issues. Nocky was so angry about this in the last 2 weeks. I can't really say what he's actually said on the group chat. But bear with him tonight. He'll speak a bit louder, and then we'll, if he's a good boy for Christmas, we'll get him a new speaker.
I'll probably wake the kids up now when I'm getting all kinds of trouble.
Well, how committed are you to the show, mate? You know what I mean? Yeah, how committed are you?
I don't really like my kids anyway, so I'm quite.
And the family show drops again at 9:10. There we go. So, moving on to the second error. Now, this is the one that's caused a bit of controversy. I may have been a bit harsh in my tweet. I know we talked about it as well, Tyler, off air, but I was critical of Cody and the mistake because I personally don't expect an England centre-back to ping a ball at a player and not make the pass from there. So that error has to be called out as well for me. It is an error. I was a bit peeved at it because I thought it cost us the game. Now, one of those errors probably only cost us the win, but we don't know the situation with there. But as again, I think you have to be honest and critical that those two mistakes cost goals. So yeah, you have to call them out, don't you? So, Ben?
I'm a little bit more okay with the Cody mistake because, to be honest, I think he's actually... I think he's been much better than I thought he would be this season. And it's still a mistake of him trying to play a forward pass. And I know it's a bad error because of the type of defender he is, but I find the Sice one inexcusable because
yeah, absolutely. Sice is definitely worse, yeah. But my point from the criticism I put out, I don't expect a player that's set such high standards of himself and to be an international footballer to do that. He doesn't make very many mistakes, but when you make a mistake in distribution there, it usually ends in a goal. Tyler, I know we've had crosswords on this, but what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, a bit with Ben. I can let him off probably that one. I think he's tried to fizz it to whoever was further at the field. I think it's just one of them things. If it goes half a yard either way, we're not even talking about it. If Coutinho gets out of the way, we're not talking about it. It could have deflected anywhere. It's gone to Lukaku clean through. Like you said, there were other factors in that made it result in the goal. Whereas, like you say, the Sace one, it's just down to his stupidity ultimately. So I was a bit more relaxed about it, and ultimately he scored the equaliser to more than make amends for it, didn't he? So I couldn't be too critical of him on Saturday, to be honest.
Right then, Knocker, without waking the kids up, what's your take on the Chelsea second goal?
It's one of them things for me. It's just something that's happened. I don't think we should dwell on it, if I'm being totally honest. I think those things happen in football. He's tried to clear it. He's tried to pick the pass, and he's just got it wrong. I mean, you see mistakes all over the pitch every game, don't you? So for me, it's one of them things. I'm not really too fussed about it. But I thought his overall performance was very good. I thought for the equalising goal, he started in his own half, run all the way forward, gets himself into a position and scores it. So personally, I'd much rather focus on the goal as opposed to maybe a bit of an error that just happens from time to time.
Absolutely. I just wanted to get your opinions on that because it's obviously it's caused mixed opinions and stuff on that, and you're slagging this player off and that. But no, I wasn't. I was just highlighting an error I was very angry about that I didn't expect from that player of that caliber, of the standards he set himself. So we're 2-0 down. It's not looking great. We've had a couple of chances. Dendonka probably should have done better after the Neto shot. Nori did all right, but I think it was a bit of a time effort. But Wolves had a couple of chances, but the impact of those subs and the almost carefree attitude of the players then to just go, you know what, it's over. Nocky, when we was at Villa, it almost felt like the same sort of timing that the game's over. Let's just go for it and see what happens. So why did it take so long? Why does it take to be 2-0 down away to the European champions, looking dead and buried with 2 self-inflicted goals. What's clicked there, Ben? What's
they're the European champions away. So it stands to reason. Look, on the amount of credit that teams like Leeds get when they go to Man City and throw players forward, get beat 7-0. Like that means nothing to me. Wolves can't go to Chelsea and play like they did in the last 20 minutes. It's a completely different mindset. Look, Wolves turned the game when they needed to turn the game and turn the screw like we haven't seen too many teams do against Chelsea. So the fact that they were able to switch it was fantastic. But I don't think you can then say, well, why didn't Wolves do that for 90 minutes? Because Wolves aren't that good. Wolves aren't good enough to do that for 90 minutes and not get slapped. So I think you have to take it into account of who they were playing and the fact that they still could. Because if you look at the Premier League, how many teams could actually do what Wolves did to them in the last 20 minutes? There aren't many.
No. What would you say, though, that there was a compromise, though, Ben, to be, I'm not saying go like that from the start, but a compromise and a little bit more belief in positivity? Or was it genuinely because Hwang's more direct, Chiquinho's definitely more direct? Was it the fact that we had players that were prepared to run straight at goal as opposed to sideways? And you know, I mean, was it the fact that we were so direct and hungry? Because the change that one sub made was, we looked like a completely different team. One player shouldn't do that. And obviously 2 assists, tracking back, good tackling, hungry. I mean, he's obviously got to start. Surely he's got to start the next game. We'll talk about that a bit later. But Nocky, the impact of those subs to turn that game round, incredible.
I think we were just in a nothing to lose situation, weren't we? The game was gone. You're in last chance saloon. We're never going to start like that. I agree with Ben. I don't think we've got the quality in our team to start like that against teams like Chelsea. We're certainly not going to start like that against Man City. So you just get to the stage where you just throw it forward and have a go at it. But yeah, I do think the subs made an impact. I still don't expect Chiquinho to start against City, if I'm being honest. But I think that Trincao, for me, made a massive impact. He looked like a really good player. But I think we just played 10 yards further up the pitch. I think when we got the first goal, you could see Chelsea regress a little bit. They went into their shells. You could see there was a little bit of concern. We smelt that. We had a couple of chances as well. Jimenez fires one wide that he's got a good chance to score with. And I felt we just took control of the game from that. And we've got that in us, but we haven't got that in us for 90 minutes. We've got that in us for a spell, I would say. So, yeah, you know, sometimes when you're in that position, you've got nothing to lose. Obviously, you just bomb on. Similar to what Leeds did against us, really. It's a case of you've got nothing to lose, so just go for it and see if it drops.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite the same as Villa away, obviously, Tyler, but it was a harder game and a harder team to beat for sure. So, I mean, credit where credit's due. To turn around like that is nothing short of remarkable. But obviously, it's Man City next. What can we take for the last 3 games of the season, take from that Chelsea game into those games? I know obviously 2 of them are one-off games because they're really hard, but what can we, what I mean, we could probably take. Do we roll the dice? I don't know, but what can we take? What can we take into that game? Those games?
Yeah, you've got the confidence, haven't you, of obviously pulling it back. But I'm a bit with you, Ryan, and I know you're probably going to fall off your chair because we don't tend to agree very often. But why can't there be a middle ground of playing more open, attacking football, and committing more men forward? It's like it's got to be one or the other. We're either part of the bus, 3 at the back, 3-5-2, we pass it sideways and backwards, we might nick a goal, or we go gung-ho and we look like we're going to score a goal. Why can't we find a balance and a blend of the two and have more impetus going forward, but still be, you know, fairly solid at the back? I think that's the main question. I agree with the lads. I said it. You can't go there and play like that for 90 minutes. It's not going to happen. Apart from probably the top 2, no one could. But I would just like to find a middle ground. I much prefer us in a 3-4-3. The 3-5-2 just does my head in, to be honest. I just don't think having those 3 central midfielders so far away from then Neto, who's trying to get close to our wall, for me, it just doesn't work. I think we're so much better with, you know, the 3 forward options. So I'd try and take that to City. You know, we've just said we had nothing to lose on Saturday. We've got nothing to lose on Wednesday night. We might as well have a go.
Ben will probably have more information than I have, but I'm quietly confident that Man City have got four defenders out. Yeah, four defenders out now. The rest of the team now going forward is pretty decent, so they can still hurt you there. But they're definitely so. Fernandinho maybe centre back. I'm not sure if Ake's fit. I I think is it Laporte's the only centre back they've got fit. So
yeah. No,
Is he-
he's okay. It's
Is
Diaz, Walker, Stones are all out for the season.
it was Diaz that went off, wasn't it? Yeah. So from a team, I mean, they've been defending brilliant this year, but that can be. I mean, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Just talk about the goals before we talk about Chiquinho. That first goal was an absolute thing of beauty. Dendoncker, I mean, he has not been talked about enough. Dendoncker's recovery, that sweeping tackle, he just went shoulder in, swept the ball round. It was delicious. Played it into Chiquinho, quick forward pass, Trincao. Oh, that's why we've got to pay 25 million for him. So, Nocky. Nocky, what a goal.
Fantastic goal, yeah. And I think it's frustrating for us because we haven't seen him do that enough this season. I think if we'd have seen him do that more, there'd be no question about swapping him for Adama outright. But it was great movement. He could have had a second just after as well, where he danced through the defence as well. He looked a really good player. I mean, I've been one of his biggest critics. I've thought it was a waste of time, but on seeing that now, I think if we could have him in a number 10 position or coming in a little bit more from the wide positions in a more attacking formation, I really think there's an absolutely fantastic player there. And I think, give him the rest of the season now. Let's see what he can do, and why not have a punt on him? But yeah, quality movement, quality finish, and like I say, Dendoncker maybe doesn't get the credit he deserves a lot of the time, but I thought he did really well in that movement. And that's what he's good at, really, isn't it? He breaks things up. He gets us out of trouble defensively and helps us manoeuvre forward. So yeah, all round a really good goal.
Just picking up on a couple of things you said then, I really like Dendoncker quite deep. I think he's really suited. There was one game, I can't remember who it was recently, and he played in front of the back four and Matinho was a bit higher up. That might have been against Villa. I can't remember. Yeah, but Dendoncker was running it. He was into forwards, but popping them out the way. He looked really, really solid. But I mean, a few people have said
He's never going to get the credit though, is he? Because he hasn't got Neves' range of passing. He hasn't got sort of the silky skills. He's your spoiler, isn't he? You stick him in front of your back four and you hope he breaks up attack. So he's never really going to get the credit that maybe he deserves. But
true, but
he's a player who doesn't let us down, isn't he?
If you're holding for the number one ranked, I think they still are, team in the world behind Kevin De Bruyne, you can't be doing too bad, can you? So I mean, credit to him. I thought it was a great goal. I mean, it's technically an assist. Chiquinho didn't do anything marvellous for it, but the finish was fantastic. And I don't think I've ever changed my mind on a player as many times as I have Trincao. Because when you see that impact against Leeds, when you see that goal, when you see them opening games, you're thinking, what a footballer, what an incredible footballer. But and for me, this was key. And I know this also created some debate, but the fact that Chiquinho was so high up, whether he was wing back or it was 4 at the back or 3 at the back, but Johnny, the right centre back, pushed up to over the halfway line, which pushed Chiquinho really high up as well, which forced Trincao in the middle. Trincao in the middle looks a completely different player. The footwork in there to drop inside and curl it in the corner. But do we take a punt on him now? Because I think now it's going to mean cash. Would he want to join Wolves now? Because I think the bit at the other end looks dead. It looks like Adama's had a few crosswords there. So is there any hope for that, Ben, or do you think that ship has sailed now?
I don't know, because I'm sceptical, because I've probably, if people in this are critical, I've definitely been more critical. I'm not sure. I think at one point I compared him to Sagbo and said he's the worst loaner I've ever seen. So, but then you see him when Wolves are actually attacking and on the front foot, and he looks a completely different player. I just don't think he's suited to the way that Wolves have tried to play negative football. When Wolves play positively, because in my opinion, the first half against Leeds and the last 20 minutes against Chelsea are as attacking and progressive as Wolves have been in the last probably all season. Yep. When you actually think back, and they're his 2 best performances, because Wolves have been on the front foot, and when he's had the ball, he's driving at people, and he looks more comfortable doing that. And Villa in the first half as well, against Villa in the first half at Molineux, he was absolutely brilliant there as well, because he's driving at people, he's got the ball at his feet, and he's got wonderful technical ability, and it makes me think are Wolves just wasting him? Because he's clearly an unbelievable footballer.
But the stuff that he does with the football, he's so natural. He almost looks lethargic sometimes. And a lot of talented footballers do that. They look lazy because he just looks so easy for them. Now, What do we do though, Tyler? I mean, I don't think. I mean, his celebration was like that, and I thought it was like a bit of a whingy celebration. But he just scored a brilliant goal. He's had some stick, but as Ben said, I think he's a victim of Wolves' style of play. But what would be the point of signing him if we stick with wing backs? Because we're only going to be the same again. We're not going to really be more progressive. I just don't see, unless Wolves get a ball carrying midfielder out of who's going to come in to play alongside whoever's going to be in centre midfield next year. I don't see the style changing that much. And if that's the case, why would we sign Trincao to only get 3 or 4 good games a season out of him, Tyler?
Well, yeah, I think you've probably answered your own question, haven't you? If the system doesn't change, there probably isn't a point. But I've said all along, I'll text you boys saying I think he's a baller, I think he's a player. And he clearly is. Ben's exactly right, and it's the point I'll come back to. If you keep playing 3-5-2s and retaining the ball and recycling it, he's not your man. If you push men forward, like United away, Ryan, we were there, he was very effective on getting in the pockets.
Loads of space.
The games where but it comes with the territory. Players like that, they're going to have good games and bad games. They float in and out of games. They're not people you can rely on week in, week out for 8 out of 10 performances. Look, we talk about Villa a lot because probably they're our local neighbours, but Coutinho, Buendia, they've had the same. They've come in, they've come out, they've looked like world beaters one week and like they've never played football the next. It sort of comes with the territory of a number 10, a luxury player. That's what they are, isn't it? I'd like to personally keep him if there's a way of playing him, but only Bruno knows if it's him in charge next season, what his plans are and whether or not it's going to be a viable. There's no point spending 25 million on someone that you're not going to not build the team around, but he's got to be one of your better players, really, if that's the case.
Yeah, and Gary Wassell, thanks for your comment. Trincao was given a free role and played like a number 10. I think originally he was on the right, but Chiquinho played so far up with Johnny pushing up behind him. I think it naturally forced him into the middle. So if that's the case, and Bruno's seen that, surely he's got to be thinking, quite like the look of that. Because for me, the whole team looked free. Yes, we couldn't do it the whole game, but to start games a little bit more positively with that kind of setup, the players looked free. They looked like they were enjoying their football. They were hungrier. They were believing it. The ball was getting moved forwards very quickly. Quick shout out to Frank, by the way. His feet are unreal. Yes, sometimes his possession, his retention isn't great, but his feet are unreal. And like he was part of the last goal as well. But yeah, moving away from Trincao and just going on to that winning goal, we've smashed through nearly half an hour. As I mentioned then, Ait-Nouri puts the ball in. I think it bounces away. Raul's challenging for it. Dendoncker lays it. Trincao squares. Chiquinho whips in far post Cody. People falling over. And for me, the best bit of that goal, not the scoring the goal, but to see the players in with the fans. No matter what level of football I'm watching, I love to see that. I just think it makes that connection for that moment of ecstasy was just tremendous. So, I mean, unfortunately, it's another game I've missed because of my long COVID situation. But boys, I bet you were all. I mean, I don't know if you were working, Ben. You probably couldn't have been misbehaving. But boys, I bet you enjoyed that goal. Any of you, I don't mind. Did anyone enjoy? Did anyone?
I'm the same as you. I liked it because you know what? It was a bit of a not FU to the Wolves fans from a code, but like you said, it just showed that there's still something there.
Yeah.
And as a football fan, that's all you want to see, just a bit
Absolutely.
of passion. He could easily pop the ball off, like Knocker said, he could pop the ball off and stay. He popped it off and he drove forward and he got in the box, and that's desire and that's passion, isn't it? And it's a bit old-fashioned, but sometimes that's all you want to see, isn't it? And to get in the crowd and the scenes like that's why you go to football matches, isn't it? Like you say.
Yeah, absolutely. And those moments are special moments. It's those while we go to football, because I mean, I've not been to a game with Ben this season. I'd imagine he works a lot on the Saturdays covering games and that. But we were at Man United, Tyler. Scenes, as I said, I was with you at Villa Park, Knocker. It's the closest I come to death at a football match, celebrating a goal. But that's what you live for. And I kind of felt that moment, the fans were owed that moment from last week, from to have that stinker. And I don't care what anyone says, that whole team's heart was not in it last weekend. But the last 20 minutes, they gave us something to cheer about. And that was like a special moment that kind of reconnected the fans and the players, hopefully. I'm not expecting much in the last 3 games. I just want to have a go and enjoy it, as you said, Tyler. But I'm absolutely delighted. Just moving on to Chiquinho's impact. Come to you, this one, Knocker. He's a guy that's got 3 assists in less than 90 minutes of football. I mean, Ben might know more of the stats on me than that, but that is a sensational return for a footballer in the Premier League. 3 stats in less than 90 minutes worth of game. But where do we go from here? Can we afford to start him against Man City? Or, I mean, surely if you come on and have that impact, you deserve a run in the side. Knocker?
For me, I think he's still an impact player. I'm still starting him on the bench, if I'm being honest. I don't think he's far away, but I think if we start him, I don't think he'll have the same impact. I think he's a player you bring on with maybe 20, 25 to go and just let him have a good run at teams. I'm not sure he'd have much. I think he'd disappear in a game if we started him. But it's not going to be long before he's knocking on the door to start games because he's clearly a very talented player. I think the most impressive thing for me, and Tyler touched on this, is that he doesn't feel he has to beat a man. We've seen Ait Nouri so many times he'll get down to the byline.
Good point.
Have to do 10 step overs, have to try and beat his man again before whipping it in. Chiquinho, from anywhere on the pitch, he has a look up and bang, he swings it into the penalty area. And you need to do that sometimes. It's not about beating your man, it's just delivering it into the box and try and get someone on the end of it. And I thought he did that really well. He shows a real maturity about him for me. You can only see him getting better, but I still think at this moment in time he's an impact sub.
I think it's like you said, that the fact he's just so hungry and direct, and it's nice to have, and a really good point of what you said about instead of doing a step over and like getting a woo from the crowd, if you put the ball in straight away, the defence is out of shape, and the Chelsea defence was a little bit wobbly because he didn't set, the ball was bobbling, whipped it in, great finish from Cody. So yeah, I'm delighted. I mean, it's not quite a Dharma swap. I'd like him to have had more of an impact and more minutes, but is the fact that he's so direct and prepared to put a percentage ball in the box playing against him starting because of Bruno's ways? You can have that one, Ben.
I think, look, you see the goal and there's players in the box. Like, that's the difference. Whereas if that happens after 10 minutes, if there's one player in the box, then it'd be a surprise.
Yeah, exactly that.
Because Wolves, I know he occasionally needs to do 15 step overs and cut in on his left, cut in on his right, cut in on his left, because that might give Raul a chance to get back from the half mile on after he just fouled the defender. But what I love about Chiquinho is he's just absolutely fearless. I think it was on his debut when he came on and he was just like, there was a couple of times when the ref penalised him for fouls, but it's just because he was just harrowing, absolutely pressing as hard as he can. And that's why I like him in that sort of, give him 20, 25 minutes and see what he's got, because he's just a completely different player to anyone else in the squad because of what we've mentioned, and the fact that he gets the ball into the box so quickly, which we've not always had. But I just think he's a nice option to have off the bench, and that is also for the point of his career that he's in as well. He's only been at Wolves a couple of months as well. But I would like to see him have. For me, he should be a regular option off the bench. It's just annoying for me. It's really annoying that game's happened when it did and not 3 or 4 weeks ago, because it feels like it could be like a really galvanising moment. But when it's come, you've still got City and Liverpool in your last 3 games, which you're probably still going to get beat anyway. And it's just come.
I was just going to say, why have, unless there's a reason we don't know, why have we not seen more of him? We've been chasing games at Newcastle. Chem Campbell came on over him in that game, if I remember rightly. Chasing a game at Burnley, we didn't see him. So unless there's a reason we don't know about, it's bizarre almost that we haven't seen a bit more of him.
Just leaning on to what
Bruno. Sorry. Bruno said that him and Chem Campbell were at the same level, which for me, if that's genuine and that's what he genuinely thinks, then I'm frightened for his player evaluations, because that's terrifying if you think that them two are at the same level.
Maybe that was to boost Chem Campbell, that he's got the same value as a £3 million footballer. Maybe that was to boost him, and it was mind games there. But interesting what you said there, Tyler. But going back to a point I said to Ben, I genuinely believe it's because how many times you see Bedence, Hwang, get the ball in wide positions, and unless that guaranteed pass is on, we don't play percentage balls. Chiquinho's a different kind of player. Maybe Bruno doesn't like the fact that he's prepared to whip in a 50-50 ball or a 60-40 ball and get it in. That's my take on it. And sometimes you need to be more direct. And boy, didn't we pay the benefits on Saturday afternoon. So,
is he in a similar position to Trincão's in the way that we played doesn't really suit him? It only suited him when we were really bombing on in the last few minutes.
It suited playing them to each other, didn't it?
He'll deliver the ball, won't he? But he'll deliver early when there'll be no one in the box at that stage of the game. So maybe similar to Trincão, he's paying the price for the way that we operate at the moment. So if we change,
I think it's all the forwards.
Maybe we get him in the game. Yeah, I think all.
I think it's all of them. The stats,
kind of goals return.
Exactly. The stats are so low for all of them. Neto, Foden, they're all stats are not where they need to be, and it's got to be down to the style that we play, recycling the football. Like Ben said, waiting for Jimenez to get forward, and then we look at it can't be coincidence, can it? They're talented footballers, aren't they? All of them. Trincão, Neto, when he's fit, Podence.
Well, I think any footballer looks better when they're playing in a positive team, because any footballer wants to you want to get the ball forward, you want to play your mating, you want to score, because that's what it's all about. So you've got a natural instinct to get forward, because talented players want to entertain, they want to showboat themselves, and that's why I think we look so much better, because it was just, right, got nothing to lose, let's just go for it. And it was great to watch. It was like that last 20 minutes, I was like, wow, how refreshing. And it was a taster back to the first 3 games of the season, not quite on that level, but it was just like fearless, attacking, creating chances. Gosh, that was really good. I'm just going to bring in a couple of comments. I'm getting a bit of stick, and that's fine. Behave right. Donk had a stinker at the weekend. No, I said he put in a really good tackle. It was a really smooth tackle, and he set Chiquinho away. Also, Hungry Like the Wolf as well, saying then Donk alternative between being a passenger and a liability. Yeah, he was. You know what?
On the fence, son.
He definitely doesn't. But for the majority of the game, he wasn't great. But I was complimenting him on the way he won the ball and the aggression he showed, which set us on the way and helped us back in the game. So yeah, it was a credit for that moment, not for the whole game. But
I think he annoys. Sorry, just on him. I think he annoys people because, as we've said before, he's probably 6'2", 6'3". He's a big lad. He's an athlete, and he just doesn't impose himself, and he's just not aggressive enough. On paper, he's the centre midfielder that we think we need, but he just doesn't really impose himself for me, and I think that's why he probably winds people up a bit.
Okay, let's bring in a couple of questions. We didn't get many in last week because it absolutely flew by. So let's start off with Steve Lees. Good evening, Steve. What's the view on the players that have been loaned out this season? Recall and integrate, or sell, release and reloan? I think I know where this one's going, so don't make me answer it. Tyler, you can start us off on this one. I think there's only one player we can bring back, to be honest.
The only other one I'd say would maybe be, would Giles come into the squad to cover left wing back if we don't sign another one? Apart from Morgan Gibbs-White, that's the only one I can see coming back. And one that maybe people have forgot is the keeper that was on loan at Blues. Does he become the number 2?
Player of the season today, announced as well.
Yeah, player of the season. Apparently he was having a worldie until he got injured in January. He was signed as a highly regarded goalkeeper. So maybe he comes into the squad. Maybe Giles on the fringes, but does that benefit him, or does he need to go and get another year of football? And for me, yeah, Gibbs-White is the obvious one for coming back in, isn't it? Ronan, I don't think he's quite Premier League top half level. He's a lovely footballer to watch, isn't he? But I don't think I don't think by his age now, I think he'd have probably cut the mustard by now. They're the obvious ones I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
I would agree, and I think everyone would say Gibbs-White, for the season he's had, probably deserves a chance. But again, I think he's different to Trincão, but I think he's a player that will benefit from playing in the 10, not narrow, wide, right. I just don't see him in that position. If he comes good, and I'm wrong, and he's got goals and assists, brilliant. Wolves have then got a gem on their hands, but it'd be a really interesting one to see. Let's take.
For me, that answers the Trincão question. To be honest, I would just rather see Gibbs-White play there and save the 25 million that you would spend on him somewhere else.
Well, there we go. You can have this one then. How do you solve a problem like Trincão? Ben, that's from Kevin Blackman.
Well, we've mentioned it, and if Wolves play more attacking, then he looks a better player. But for me, I just think the money can be spent. what I keep thinking is if Gibbs White wasn't a lone player and he'd had the season that he'd had for Sheffield United, got them to the playoffs, been their best player, England under 21 international, and then Wolves signed him, everyone would be absolutely buzzing.
Yeah.
Everyone would be really happy with that signing.
Well, we're going away from Kev's question, which we kind of mentioned earlier on. But if that is the case, then let's say Wolves were to sell him after the season he's had, what's his value?
Double figures.
20, I'd say at least 20 million.
15,
for the British player market's always been inflated, hasn't it? So someone would pay 20 million for him.
But if we sell him for 20 million, do we bring in a replacement of the same quality for 20 million? That's the question. For me, I think he deserves a chance. He's done more than enough to have an opportunity back in this team. I mean, what else has a kid got to do? He's player of the season there. He's been brilliant for them. They love him. They'd sign him in an absolute heartbeat if they got promoted, I'm sure of that. So for me, I can...
Well,
we'd be desperate to sign him if he wasn't a Wolves player already.
You speak yourself, Knock, about the business of Fosun and how they're... like to make I think Wolves nothing as a
I think Wolves will potentially they'll probably get 20 million and add 25% sell-on clause, and because that the way the payments go in terms of financial fair play, that gives Wolves some massive spending potential.
What does it say to every other lad that goes out on loan though? If Gibbs White does that and then still can't have any impact at Wolves, like if I was another kid that's getting sent out on loan, I'd be like, what's the point? Like unless. Like Gibbs White's been arguably, in the top 5 players in the Championship. Like, what else?
I'm with you. I'd keep him. I'm not saying I would sell him.
No, I think they financially wise, you'd say that pays for the academy for like 6 years, doesn't it? If they sell him for the type of money that they want, and then they're self-sufficient, and that's done. But in my opinion, like I just think it sends the wrong message out because the loans are essentially pointless, aren't they?
You said as well there, Roy, that you think it gives us more scope to go heavy in the transfer market. But what makes you think we're going to go heavy in the transfer market?
I know. Now, Johnny Phillips often says a lot of good stuff about Wolves and a lot of stuff that's actually true. And he's come out and said it. John Percy said it. And if those kind of people are saying there's going to be a lot of change and a lot of transfers, and I know the season tickets are coming up, and I know you're thinking that, Nocky. I can see it. You're desperate to shout at me, but I do believe that this window, and Wolves must have seen enough. It's stale in some areas of the pitch. Centre backs are the same centre backs from a long time now. Same midfield pairing. Neves will probably go. I'm not sure if Martinez is going to stay. There's no news whether he's going to sign that deal. I think it's not a matter if they're going to. I think they have to, Nocky. And a player going out like Gibbs White, if there's more. I'm not saying this is what I do because I think Gibbs White deserves a chance. But Chiquinho, if there's more Chiquinhos to be had for like that kind of money, I think Wolves will see a lot of that kind of business coming to bulk the squad.
But I agree we'll spend, but we're not going to spend above budget. What we spend will be what we make. So we're going to sell Neves. I think we'll get a 10 million for Adama. So we're going to have money to spend, but we're also going to be replacing 3, 4, maybe 5 real key players. So for me, you can't let Gibbs White go on the back of that because you're going to have to replace these players. It's all right saying we've got 70 million to spend, but if that's replacing Neves, Martinho, Saïs, you're not going to touch the sides, is it? So for me, yes, we're going to have money to spend, but it's not going to be Fosun aren't going to suddenly say, here's a war chest. It's going to be, you've sold Neves, there's your money, go and rebuild your squad on the back of that. So selling a player who's experienced, has played Premier League football, knows the club and has had a really good season, letting him go for 20 million and then going and signing someone from Portugal who you hope is the next Neves, who might need 2-3 seasons to settle in, counterproductive.
That Vitina's decent at Porto. But anyway, we'll move on to the move on to the next question. This is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek one because I know Rob was having a bit of a swipe, but I thought I'd put it anyway. And this is aimed at me. Why are some of the pundits unable to recognise the difference between a back 4 and a back 3? Now, basically, Rob's talking about it because I said it was like 4 at the back. Now, initially, I watched the game back again. Johnny was tucked in as the right centre back of the 3. But as the game went on, Johnny was over the halfway line on the right, which pushed Chiquinho further up. Not very many times have I seen the Wolves right centre back going up on the right-hand side of the pitch. So for me, and I think some of you guys mentioned it on the group chat, it was a 5 in possession. It was a 4 out of possession. That's the way it kind of felt with Johnny becoming a fullback. But I know you're having a swipe, Rob, but I thought I'd respond back. Here we go again. So this is a great question, and I'm not sure who's going to have this one. Put your hand up if you want it. Rob again. Why do Wolves persist in signing forwards who neither score or assist? Despite the weekend, I'd put Trincao in this category along with Podence, Traore, and Hwang. Now I know we've touched on this a little bit in terms of this is more to do with the system, but Tyler, you're nodding, so I'm going to throw that one at you.
I think that's all it boils down to is the system. To be honest, I'd argue. I think we've all said, and a lot of Wolves fans seem to agree that the jury's out on Hwang a bit as whether he has got the quality to be a Premier League forward. But the system doesn't allow these guys to be free and express themselves. It just doesn't. Podence gets the odd game in a little free roll where he can, do neat tricks and turns and try and make things happen. But I don't like the stats in the XG, but it's low for Wolves every week, isn't it? It is, and we have one player in the box in Jimenez, maybe Dendoncker joining him now and again. The stats are never going to be good in the system that we've got, and I think that for me is why they don't create bags and bags of chances, do they? So,
Ben, I see you nodding in that. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, completely. My mindset on Wolves forwards completely changed when Jota left, because I did not think Jota was good enough to go to Liverpool, but he went to a side that create chances, and he's one of the most prolific strikers in the Premier League. And I'm convinced that particularly make no apology for it, I love Adama Traore. I think if Traore went to a side like that puts players forward, I think his stats would be really good.
I make no mistake, Ben, if he's available for 10, 15 million pounds, it won't be lower half teams that are looking at him. If he's available, there'll be Arsenal, there'll be Spurs. Teams will be looking to snap him up, and they will snap him up, and that'll be painful because, I'd rather he went abroad, but I really see him staying here and someone getting a bargain.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, even at the start of when he was at Barca, I thought he was like registering assists, and I just think
4 assists in his first 6 games.
Yeah, it's the system.
Absolutely. Thanks for your input there. I've got another one here. This is all going back to the first question, but I don't know the exact rules on this. But Hungry Like the Wolf says we have less opportunities at Grasshoppers next year due to the new rules and lots returning. Gibbs White, Ronan, Corbeau, Giles, Campara, Kwabe, and Bola. What do we do with all these players now? You might know more, Ben. One of you guys might know more. I don't believe you can loan as many players out or loan as many players to one club. So does that mean Wolves are going to have a lot stronger 23 side? Because I could only probably see Gibbs White there coming back into the squad. I can't see any of those other guys coming back. So do Wolves have to sell some of these players and reinvest in younger talent? Or, what's the solution? As my light goes out. It's my turn now.
Knocker can have that one.
Knocker. And speak up, Knock.
I think, I think Gibbs White comes back. I think, could we have a look at Chiquinho? He scored a few goals. I don't know. It's a different level over there, isn't he?
I don't think he's anywhere near it, mate.
No, come on, son. Put the shandies down, Knock.
Other than that, I think Corbeau looks a good player, but he's a good season or 2 away, I think. I don't see any of them other than Gibbs White getting a run in the team. So, we can't lend too heavily to Grasshoppers next year, but there's no reason we can't lend most of those players out around the Football League unless there's a rule I'm not aware of. So, it might do them more good to get more experience in England, but we do kind of run our academy to try and fund itself. So, I do think there'll be potentially a couple of them go. Giles, maybe, because I know we talk maybe he can come back, but for me, I think he'll be one of the assets I'd look to sell. Connor Ronan, I think he might go as well, and the rest maybe give him a loan and just see if there's anything there to play with going forward, or just to increase the value of them before we sell them on next year.
What I would say to that, though, which is a positive, and we've been talking about it a while, and one of you mentioned, with these players, a lot of them Wolves have sort of raised and developed. With these kind of players becoming on the market, Wolves will become self-sufficient in that area, which hasn't happened for a long, long time. We haven't really seen that much talent come through. I mean, can we class Kilman as ours because he was the age he was bought at? Because Kilman's 24, 25 now, so he probably can't. So really, then we're looking back at Gibbs White and who else really recently. So
Kundal, Gibbs White. Other than that, what was the last one before that?
But they haven't made a real positive impact on the Wolves.
No, they're not. They've not first teamers yet. But it is a positive question. A great question from Hungry Like the Wolf. It's thank you very much. So 10 minutes left of the show. We talked Chiquinho, talked about the Chelsea game. We've talked about the rewards of positive football. We've answered some questions now. We're looking ahead to Man City now. I'm going to get a few more questions in later on. I can see my screen's popping like crazy up there. Now, you're stuck if you do, you're stuck if you don't. Ben, you're Bruno Lage. You're picking the team and the system. What are you doing against Man City?
I think you've got to be pragmatic because
you don't want to get humiliated.
I think the result against Real Madrid probably came at the worst possible time, and then they've gone and smacked Newcastle. It wouldn't surprise me if they win every game, remaining by a few goals. This is the one thing that they've got to win now, and they're going to come at it. But Wolves done okay against Man City. Pep doesn't like the way that we play. He likes to say that every single time.
Neither does Klopp.
Yeah, well, yeah. And for me, that is why we should play like that. Because I don't want Pep to come out and say, "Oh, Wolves played lovely football after we've got beat 5-0." I'd rather him be moaning and saying that we're absolutely ridiculous and only one team tried to play football, because that means that Wolves have done their job. Because Wolves aren't as good as Man City, so Wolves need to be pragmatic, but they also need to have players that are still on the bench that can turn the game as they did against Chelsea. I think there still needs to be a second gear, because that's where Wolves get unstuck, when they don't have that second gear and they can't switch it up. And I think Chelsea was one of the first times we've actually seen them be able to. Because you mentioned Villa. For me, that was a completely different performance, the last 20 at Chelsea. Because I still think Villa was fortunate.
The home game?
No, away.
No, absolutely. I meant in terms of the circumstances.
Yeah.
We didn't play well at Villa. We had more belief in the last 20 because Podence came on, and it was almost, again, it was the same sort of theory, 5 defending, 4 attacking it at the back.
Yeah.
But I agree.
I just think Wolves need to be pragmatic and keep themselves in the game. That Wolves just need to stay in the game as long as they can. That's my opinion.
Now, going back to the game when we played them before Christmas, I don't recall being... I mean, I get angry about Wolves a lot. You've only got to see my Twitter for that. But I don't recall being as angry about a decision to go against us as I have been that. I mean, Raul was very, very silly, stupid, that booking and then closing the ball and going off that. But that handball against Jao Moutinho, they had VAR. Ex-officials were talking about it. Players were talking about it. And national media, match of the day, it was like, how is that? And surely, and that's a Man City side that could only beat Wolves, who had 10 men, because of an absolute stinker of a decision. So for me, we owe them one. Now, I'm like you, Ben. I would like us to... I don't want to go toe-to-toe because you get slapped. You'd be 3 or 4-0 down. You don't know what's happened. I'd like to frustrate them because they'll get desperate. I think they'll feel that they'll need to win that game. I don't think they want any slip-ups. And I think if we frustrate them and draw them out with the defenders they've got away, that'll be the best plan for me. I mean, you could die on your sword and go for it, but if you're 2-0 down, 3-0 down after 20 minutes, the game's over because it's difficult. But move on to you, Knocker. What would you do? You're Bruno. You're in charge. What are you doing?
Similar to Ben, really. I think we have to make the game horrible. I think we have to make it ugly. I think we have to make it uncomfortable for them. Because if we're not careful, the game's over very, very quickly and it's curtains. So I'd keep a lot of the flair players in reserve. It's vital we don't concede the first goal, because if we do, I think they'll take the game away from us pretty quickly after that. So for me, it's just make it horrible, annoy Pep and see if we can maybe catch something on the break. But I think with the issues they've got defensively, I do think we'll have a couple of opportunities, but we have to be ruthless and we have to take them. And if we can get in front, it's a completely different game then, because we've got something to hold on to. And
well, you tease, Knocker.
Nasty going forward. So yeah, there's no point going gung-ho, because dying on your sword's great, but dying on your sword 7 or 8 nil ain't going to do us no good, is it? So I want us to be horrible, be frustrating, and hit the deck quick. Give them a few unnecessary kicks. Just be nasty and see if we can get inside their heads a little bit.
Tyler, you're Bruno. Are you the same, or are you going for it?
No, I'm not having what these boys are saying. I mean, the likelihood is we're going to lose the game anyway. I'm not saying play 4-2-4 and have 4 players on their back 4, but I think we need to have a bit of pace in the side, because if you're going to break against them, you need to break with pace. Otherwise, they'll just win the ball back off you. They'll close you. They'll press you, and they're too good for you. I don't want to see Hwang anywhere near the team, because City are good enough with the ball. We don't need to be giving it back to them every 5 minutes. So I would like to see a bit of pace up top. Whether that's a Fabio, more mobile person, I can't see Neto starting the game if he started on Saturday. So there are decisions to be made, aren't there, really? I think Trincão's probably a bit too much of a luxury to start the game. So it's almost hard to see who plays, really. And I think a lot of people would probably put different teams out and guess the lineup. But the one thing I'd try and get in the side is a bit of pace and directness if we can.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of going for it and somehow shithousing a win. But Man City were just, what a response yesterday. Kevin De Bruyne looks like it's not fair when he plays. He's just so good to watch and he's so effective. I don't see anything but a 3-man midfield. I don't see anything but Dendoncker, Neves and Matinho. I can only see that. I think the biggest question at the back, I think he's got an opportunity.
If Saïss isn't fit, you're either bringing in a very inexperienced.
Well, I was about to say that.
Or you better go into a back 4.
And no offence to either player, do I want Connor Cody and Willy Bolly playing in a back 4 against that Man City team? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I do.
4, though, is he? He's not
but you've got Marcel.
Hang on a second. I've got a solution. So what about if we did what we did on Saturday and Johnny goes right centre back and Chiquinho goes right wing back? Why don't we start it? Because that pairing worked on that side of the pitch.
I've always said that Johnny was.
I think you need pace on the wing. At least you've got pace at wing back, then, haven't you?
Go on, Ben.
Yeah, I've been saying for about 2 years that I think Johnny will eventually come in and be one of the 3 centre backs. And I got ripped for it because people told me he was about 5'2", but
that's irrelevant, though, isn't it?
I think he's so suited to that position, and
yeah,
he makes Wolves such a more progressive team with the way that he can move with the ball.
And we saw proof of that.
Yeah, I really, really think that is, particularly now they've got Ait-Nouri, and we have actually got a genuine option to play there instead of Johnny. And obviously, once Semedo's back fit, I really think that's a long-term option for Wolves. I'm adamant that it is. So I wouldn't be averse to seeing that.
I mean, it does. Yeah. It certainly gives us a lot more legs down that side of the pitch. And yes, Man City put incredible crosses in, but they're not. It's not aerial bombardment crosses, is it? They're whipped in precision crosses for tap-ins at the far post and incredible passes in. So I wouldn't be against seeing that. And I feel, like you said, with Ait-Nouri, he's so good going forward and breaking. But, I mean, we've got a couple of minutes left. I don't mind if it runs over a little bit. I have a few complaints for finishing early or finishing on time. So if you guys want to stay on and talk for a couple of minutes. Thanks very much. Family show. But truth hurts. Boys, the only problem for me, I think that team there, it's roughly going to be that. But I could not, if you told me, have a bet who's going to be the 2 forwards, I couldn't tell you. I've absolutely no idea. He's well capable of starting Fabio in that game because Fabio's mobile. I mean, does he start Raul again? I don't know. Ben, what are we doing?
He won't start Fabio, will he? Because he's got some.
Say it.
He's obviously got something against him. The way that he can take him off and keep Hwang on. For me, he obviously doesn't think that he's capable. For me, I would. I've said how many times I've said that I would start Silva over Jimenez anyway, and I'll still stand by that. And I think particularly in a game like this, just because of his extra pace, but maybe play both of them, because Neto, like you say, I don't think Neto's going to start. And I think
that's a good show.
I think it will be 3. I think it will be 3-5-2. So I'd maybe play both of them and see how it goes, because Wolves are going to need just bodies in midfield, and if Jimenez can, well, you don't need to tell him, he'll drop deep anyway, won't he? And then Wolves can effectively have 4 in there.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I quite like the sound of that. I'd be quite if it was Fabio and Raul to start with. Actually, Fabio's quite happy to play off the shoulder. Raul will definitely come deeper, as you mentioned. You joked about it, but it's true. Raul will come deeper, and if that's the case, then you can get Chiquinho further to pitch and Aït-Nouri. Yes, we'll probably have about 20% possession, but they are vulnerable and they can be got at. So coming to the.
It's going to be Hwang and probably Raul, I would have thought. But I'm with Ben. I'm starting Fabio because I think with the movement, with him running into the channels,
I think he links the play well as well.
It's a defence that's a little bit unsure of themselves as well, so he could cause them real problems. But my suspicion is it'll be a Raul with Hwang just off him.
Yeah, I think it will.
Right then, guys, we ran a little bit over, but let's start with you then, Nocky. Give me your first scorer and your score prediction. I can't wait for Tyler's.
2-1 City, and I think Kevin De Bruyne because he's just phenomenal to watch.
Yeah, if he's not your dream team captain this week, what are you doing?
No,
yeah, he's unbelievable, isn't he? Tyler?
1-1. Never.
Wow.
Ooh, hello.
What did you say?
When Wolves are the underdogs, different game.
Did you say 7-1 then?
No one can believe it. We'll absolutely take that all day. I'm delighted. Ben?
3-0 City, Grealish.
There's your reality check with Grealish. You know what, Ben? You can be really spiteful when you want to be, can't you?
I know. I thought he looked really, really good yesterday.
Yeah, he did.
I mean,
that's his level, though, isn't it?
I don't know. I wouldn't mind him though, mate. He's still very decent. I think Grealish will have a good season next year. But anyway, we don't want to talk about Jack Grealish. I'm going to go. I'm going to go for an optimistic 0-0. I know that stinks and it's boring, but I would absolutely take that. Yeah, mate. 5-5-0, tuck in, bore 'em, and then do the same to Liverpool the following weekend. This has been episode 30 of the Wolves Report. Thank you so much to Ben Husband from Mirror Football for joining us. Thank you for Nocky for fixing and paying for his internet. And thank you to Mr. Consistent Tyler. That's a nice thing I've ever said. This has been the Wolves Report. Up the Wolves.